Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer at Choppy Trading Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, April 28th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So a quick wrap up on today. You look at the numbers for today, you see Q's essentially flat, just barely down. SPY the other way, just barely positive for the day. Small caps actually up, outperformed for the day. Bitcoin was down about 0.75%. That's the IBIT ETF. Bonds gains, and gold really outperformed. So you look at those numbers and you're like, wow, it must have been a really snoozer of a day. And it wasn't so much that. Pretty good intraday price action, a little bit different than what we've seen recently. Last week, there was just a big move to the upside, and the market just kind of kept on grinding higher. Today, we started down. If you remember, like S&P futures last night were down about about 0.5% through the night, and we basically rallied pre-market, got to basically start to kind of rally into the open. And you had a lot of growth names outperforming early, and then you had a lot of reversals. So a lot of give back of those early gains. But just kind of quickly to kind of summarize the price action, the Qs were down, I think, on the lows about 1.2% for the day and came all the way back. So what's going on here? Well, we have been seeing obviously big intraday moves before, or over the last couple months, but it seems to be settling down a little bit. And I think that there's a couple things going on here. Number one, we're into some overhead resistance. SPYs right into that bottom of the value area for the month. So there's some selling going on here. You also have, which is kind of crazy in this market to have this, but you seem to have a lot of FOMO, right? We heard a lot about breath thrust last week, and all of a sudden, like a lot of a lot of bullishness comes into the market, and you had a whole bunch of growth names, which growth had a huge week last week and outperformed value. I think the growth ETF VUG was up like 6% last week, so you had a little bit of that continuation this morning, but things kind of reversed. So I'll go over the price action, but here's your daily chart to kind of say, hey, we're right into this bottom of the April value area. I know this is a little bit difficult to read because I've got several things kind of highlighted on my charts, and if you're not used to it, what this looks like is on the daily chart without looking at the yearly value area is that we've kind of rallied right back into some overhead supply, right? And again, that's the bottom of the April value area. Now, it's important to kind of have a little bit of a think about a scenario analysis, even though I don't have a crystal ball. But I think like one possible outcome, and I'm not saying this is the actual, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know if this is actually going to happen. But now that we're a little bit overbought in the short term, I would think like a pullback maybe into here, which would be the new value area for the month of May, might make sense. Now, don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that that's pretty interesting and notable. All right. When we look at what happened on the 1 hour chart too, we started this week. This is the value area that's based on last week's price and volume activity. And we kind of hit this right in the beginning of the day. We tried to rally and got stuffed. Right. And also when you look at the 5-minute, right, you're going to see, okay, well, we got stuffed at that resistance. Right, and that's going to come, that was here. So again, I'm going to turn this back on so that you could see the time frames from the 1 hour time frame. But here we go. We got rejected here. But when we came back down, now I'm going to turn this off so you could see this a little bit clearer. But we just came back to, we checked back to the bottom of the value area. So there was no major breakdown. And in fact, we found buyers down there. So a little bit different. We didn't come out and take out the highs at the end of the day, but this was one heck of a nice comeback. So yes, finished essentially flat for the day, but round trip for the day. And if we look at this in terms of the Qs, so I'm going to do the same exercise here. I'm going to start with the daily chart. And again, we're just looking at the value area for the month here. And you're going to see that we did make it into the value. So a little bit strong, a little bit relative strength versus the S&P, where price actually made it into the value area for the month. And you can see this is bullish 80% rule. Now, I don't think that that's going to get accomplished, but who knows the way this market's been moving, because we only have 2 days to go for this bullish 80% rule. We only have 2 more trading days of the month. So again, a little bit extended here. And, we could see some type of a check back. We could also see, we did check back today in 1 day's price action. And here's what the 1 hour value area looks like. Right, same thing as this is similar to the S&P, where we try to get above the value area for the week. Again, this value area is based, so you can see the volume profile, right? And that is based on last week. So we got right to the top of the value area and we just couldn't get through it. All right, so that level to watch for tomorrow is 473.43 to the upside. I detail this all day long for you guys in the not all day long, but I detail this for you in the midday note for the Substack that I hope that you're reading and enjoying. Please let me know if you have any feedback about that. And it looks like for tomorrow we're going to start right in the middle of the value area for tomorrow. Now, also similar to S&P. Now, I mean, I used this to trade today. I bought some TQQQ down here once we held support, and I thought we might come down here and take out this blue line, but we didn't. We held quite neatly and nicely the bottom of the value area, and I played this move to about here. I missed the last end of the day. I could have held on a little bit longer, but that's okay. All right, so that's the price action that we have. The IWM, which I mentioned, outperformed. It's kind of interesting. This continues to move higher. It's got about another 2.7% before we get to some resistance. The development that happened last week was IWM got back inside its value area for the year, which is this big gray block. And again, you'll see this on the weekly chart. It's just in isolation. But, that's a heck of a VPOC reversal, by the way, off that lower VPOC and into the value area. So, interesting movement that's happening there in the micro caps. In terms of single stock action, so first of all, I'm just going to go back to the S&P chart here. And notice how we're also still inside value for the year. We're going to bring this back to the daily chart. So that pink box is what you just saw from the weekly chart. So again, we've got a lot of overhead resistance. Now, what do we have this week? Do we have a lot of events or do we have a few events? We've got a lot of events this week. So we'll just kind of have to take this action and maybe we do chop around a little bit. I've noted in the weekend video, I talked about I talked about this in the weekend video, as well as I put this in the midday note today about the NIMO and the NAMO, which is really overbought, which basically is just showing you that I can't zoom in here. Sorry about that. But NIMO and NAMO really stretched to the upside. And that is basically just meaning that the momentum has gotten short-term very stretched to the upside. Right. And there's a little bit of an explanation that I put in here so that you understand what the NIMO and the NAMO is telling you, but it just means that we've got a real big shift in momentum. Now that momentum is overbought. So some backing and filling with all of the events this week. So let me just bring this calendar up again. Tomorrow, we're going to get things like the JOLTS jobs openings, as well as consumer confidence, which is a half hour after the open. Then on Wednesday, you're going to get, most importantly to me, is the PCE price index. I don't know why they're giving you this number after the open. Normally it's 8:30. I guess they try to shift this, they usually put out the GDP one day and the core PCE and personal consumption one day. And then maybe because this month doesn't have 31 days, they're giving you the PCE, the index, the same day and a half an hour after the open. So you might see some fireworks there. So again, that's not tomorrow, that's on Wednesday. Right. And then of course once we get to Friday, right? Today's the 28th, 29th, Wednesday. So Thursday is the first of the month. And then you're going to get ISM manufacturing. And then Friday, you're going to get the jobs report, monthly jobs report. So a lot of data this week. That's just earnings. Thank goodness the Fed is in a quiet period, so you don't have to worry about them this week. But you're also going to get a lot of earnings reports this week, right? You're going to get Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, right? Those reports coming after the close on Wednesday and Thursday. So a lot of information. I think that could possibly set up for some digestion Again, not a prediction, just what I'm thinking realistically for this market. And meanwhile, we're going to get a lot of earnings reports too, which I think that you're going to get a lot of trading opportunities. So I think, sitting back here a little bit would make sense. It would burn off some of those short-term overbought levels, also maybe clean out some of the FOMO that's in this market. But I'll tell you, you've got some really nice movers going on. Netflix, right? Again, why is this interesting to me? Well, it's always interesting because a lot of times what will happen is a company will report strong earnings and then the institutions will have to start buying. And that's exactly what you've got going on in Netflix. Another name that seems like everybody is watching in terms of like a growth trader's perspective is Palantir. Palantir is making a nice move here. And look at the dip get bought today, right? And I think that's what you kind of have to watch out for some of these names. If you want to add more exposure to these names, notice that the strongest names, they don't dip for too long, right? So here's the, sorry about that. I just messed this up, but here's the price action today, like a little bit of a double bottom. Second low is a little bit lower, but nice recovery for the stock. And I think you want to keep an eye on some of these names and how they dip, because I think that there's a lot of people who want to get into these names and are taking advantage of these little dips. So here's how, my watch list was all over the place today. I had various names that were up decently, like Rocket Labs today. I mean, so this was an exercise, and this is how to kind of how I try to think about when we open up like we did today, where you had about five or six of I literally had about 20 alerts go off this morning in the first 10 minutes. And there was about I was going to say 5 to 6, but maybe more like 10 of these names were all up like 3% past their trigger. And Rocket Labs was one of those names, which is like some of these names have been doing this. So it did finish up nicely, like up 1.3%. So, but it was at one point, like in the first 15 minutes, right? Like right here, right? The stock was all the way up like just about 5% for the day, right? Took out a VPOC up here. So if you're holding some of these names, right, I would say, I don't know how you can't be selling some of these names. And I think you really want to avoid chasing some of these names in the first 10 minutes. They are meant to be sold in the first 10 minutes, especially when you look at a name like this that's been kind of struggling with turning the corner, right? A couple times in here, like same thing, try to rally and kind of came back in for the most part. So these are tricky names. Other than that, like if you're holding them for more of swing trades, maybe you don't monitor them too quickly, too much in the beginning of the day, and you just understand that it's still advanced 1.3%. My best trade today was a trade that I just added on Friday because I thought it could catch this growth momentum, which was HIMS. And this thing, I'll show you my trades. I took profits. I took profits at 29.80. I took another target at 30.10. I think that was it for me for that. But so I don't think I got the very top of it. But again, like these are gifts. Stock traded all the way up almost to 31 bucks and closed, at 28.50. So again, to me, that's just a lot of FOMO in this market that is driving these names up where people are kind of attacking these things pre-market and there's no institutional buying in these things. It's just a lot of like retail fluff. So they're giving you opportunities to exit in the beginning of the day, and then you can reassess as the day goes on and maybe even add back. And I did that like with Take Two this morning. Take Two, here was the price action or this is the 5 minute chart. Sorry, that was the 1 hour chart. But I sold in the beginning of the day and then I added some back in here. And that's how, if you're flexible and you're putting some of that money in your pocket every day, you're getting the opportunity to possibly add back if you still like the name, which I still very much like the name here in Take Two. All right, guys, that is it for today. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.